This is a CBS 42 special report.
April 27th, 2011. A date branded into the hearts and minds of all who call Alabama home.
Ran inside, and I still didn't really take it as serious as I should have.
We're like so scared. Everybody's heart's just beating.
This historic act of Mother Nature carved a path still visible 1 year later.
The only way I knew I survived is God was standing there.
This is as violent as it gets.
It forever changed lives, for the worse and for the better.
You know, having been through something like this and losing something so important to me, it helps you to help somebody else.
Through every stage of recovery comes unbelievable stories of survival.
He was as high as like the power lines over there. It was just like a rag doll. I mean, he was just in it, just being tossed and thrown.
The people of Alabama have shown their strength through attitude and action. Survivors believing in each other to get through one of the worst disasters in our nation's history.
When something like that happens, folks tend to forget all their petty differences. Things like politics, religion, race. When we're confronted with a tragedy of such magnitude, all that just fades away.
And welcome in as you are looking live at a picture of one of the most devastated communities following that massive tornado outbreak 1 year ago today. We are in Pratt City, Alabama, northwestern corner of Birmingham. Many areas have seen progress, still many are struggling. Welcome into this very special edition of Wake Up Alabama on April 27, 2012. I'm Stephen Houck.
And I'm Brooke Smith, and we are live in Pratt City.
I'm Rick Jackson. It is hard to believe a year has passed since the tornado outbreak of 2011.
And I'm Kalee, Dionne. We all remember last April like it was yesterday. And as we look back, we're also looking forward at the progress that has been made the last several months. And let's get a check of our forecast as well, as we have a night and day difference in the forecast compared to last April 27th. At this time, we were dealing with a squall line moving through today. Very calm, very quiet start to this Friday, April 27th. We will have a full look at your forecast and looking to the weekend coming up.
And you know, it is just almost eerie out here this morning. I know the weather is fine, very different, but it just feels like a eerie calm.
Yeah, very, very true. But we are so thankful with what's going to be going on today, all these events we're talking about, that the weather is such a stark contrast to 1 year ago today.
Oh yeah, we have all of the events and even the cleaning up that's still going on. And those, you know, where their lives are just going to school and work. This forecast is just beautiful today. We're going to have some clouds around, but the good news is we may have an isolated thunderstorm, but other than that, no severe weather expected here in central Alabama. And
You know, I asked them through all of this, I was like, Chris, how did you get through? How did you make it? Being the man, the pillar of the family who had to stay strong. He did not hesitate to say, God. It was my faith that got me through this. And you know, today he's bringing the community together. He's spending the entire day broadcasting live from 98.7 KISS FM in Pleasant Grove, that area that affected so many people, to kind of like pass along hugs and great conversations and good food. So,
you know, I'm glad that he is going and built back in Pleasant Grove, because I know there are some people who won't go back because of what happened a year ago today. So it's nice to see him rebuilding on that same property. And this is why the state of Alabama will never go down, because of that heart and that drive and that strength.
Absolutely. Fantastic story. Thank you, Rick. Well, there's still so much to do as we continue our look back at. And from Tumors to Tuscaloosa, the weather is going to be nice for pretty much all of us in the state today, right?
Oh, it's going to be a night and day difference from last year. We're going to be dealing with a mix of sun and clouds. So there'll be a lot of clouds around today, but the fact is we're not going to have that chance for severe weather. But there are a very small portion of the area could see an isolated thunderstorm.
Well, we want to get some reaction now from the meteorologist in charge from the National Weather Service in Birmingham.
Yes, and Kalee is actually standing by with Jim Stefkovich right now. Kalee?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm here with Jim Sefcovic with the National Weather Service, and it is so wonderful to have you out here today. I know this has been a whirlwind of a year for everyone in this entire state, and it's impacted people differently. And us as meteorologists, we've learned a lot through this process, and it has affected us. What has you guys at the National Weather Service learned over the last year?
Well, we have to redouble our efforts, and we're doing that. You all are doing that. We at the Weather Service are doing that, and educating folks, getting them prepared, having plans in place, and doing the right things. A lot of people did the right things and unfortunately were injured or killed. So we want to make sure that people know about severe weather and put a plan into place.
No, it's very important, and that is the moment where you at home need to take the responsibility when we give you the information to get to a safe place. Now, last year, you talked to us a couple days after April 27th, talking about what you guys were going to be doing and how it had impacted you, and we're going to play what Jim had said last year to us right now.
Unfortunately, and in my 30-year career, I've seen a number of violent tornadoes. I worked in Texas for a number of years and have seen them all across the Southeast. When you get to violent tornadoes, unless you can literally get under the ground, there's just going to be death and injury, unfortunately. And less than 2% of all tornadoes that occur across the United States are violent. And unfortunately, it looks like we had a number of violent tornadoes that came across the state. And when that happens, you're going to have unfortunate circumstances.
And, listening back to that, what does it bring you back to?
Well, just almost a sickening feeling, because we just never could comprehend that so many strong and violent tornadoes were going to occur. In my 30-year career, I never saw the parameters come together like they did, and we just knew it was going to be bad. But even as we're seeing all these on radar and no people were being injured and dying, I never imagined it would be that bad.
And going off of that, never imagined it being that bad. I felt the same exact way. Now, what personally, we've spoke at our integrated warning system conference that we had recently. What has it changed in you, and how are you handling other events because of it?
It's made me love people a lot more. I see all the heroes that have emerged to help their neighbors. I see the first responders, the emergency managers, those of us in the meteorology business that, we got to do everything that we can to help people. And it's made me care a lot more about things.
I want to thank you so much, Jim Sefcovic with the National Weather Service, for joining us this morning. We're going to be talking to him a little bit later on in the show, so stick with us on that as we look back on April 27th, 1 year later.
This is a CBS 42 special report.
Welcome back into Wake Up Alabama as we are live here in Pratt City on the anniversary of the devastating storms of April 27th. Taking a live look at just some more debris, some rubble of a home, a cooler there, surrounded by just all types of just devastation, which is pretty much the situation here and in countless areas around the state. Still, 1 year later, many people struggle to deal with what we had to go through a year ago. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Houck.
And I'm Brooke Smith, and we are live in Pratt City this morning as we look back on April 27th, 2011. Just a very eerie morning out here.
Absolutely, Brooke. Rick Jackson here. We are taking a look back at the events of that day, something we never thought we would experience with our own two eyes, and unfolded.
Yeah, and I'm Kalee, Dionne, and as we look back, we're also going to look forward at the progress that has been made in the several months. But before that, you're getting ready for your day, whether you're going to be out at events or going to school. Let's get a quick check of our forecast, and that's going to be a mix of sun and clouds today. The chance for rain is very, very small, with just an isolated thunderstorm that will pop up throughout the day, and that is mainly in our northeastern counties, and it's a very small chance. Again, just make sure that if you're heading out to clean up even today, as we're showing you that there is still a lot that needs to be done around the area, make sure you're drinking plenty of water, because high temperatures today will be in the mid to low 80s throughout central Alabama, so it will still be warm despite a lot of the cloud cover that will be around. More on the forecast is coming up.
One thing to be said about the recovery is the situation of those survivors, those who did make it through, have come so far.
Yes, and while many areas have cleaned up the mess, there are still places that just have debris and so much damage just still left behind.
Yeah, and you can never really understand the impact of our landscape until you get a visual from the air, and it really puts in perspective to you that many people's wounds have healed, but still a lot of the scars are like a road that leads to nowhere.
And I just wanted to take you through the path.
So what's changed? These are images from last year, the day after the April 27th tornadoes ripped through Alabama. Our CBS 42 cameras took to the air to survey the damage.
Now look at all that steel down there, those buildings.
Fast forward to 2012, 1 year later. I'm moving into Tuscaloosa, and this slab right here, this is actually where the Hobby Lobby and that shopping center used to be there, and now it looks just like a flat slab because all of it had to be knocked down because of the damage. Now we're on to the Pleasant Grove area where a lot of rebuilding is in process, and if you look right there where there's just that lone house by itself, there's a couple of houses there, we actually are getting two different perspectives on the rebuilding from up in the air, and also we've got shots of the growing process there on the ground. Now we're moving on to the Hackleburg area where you can still see a lot of just empty dirt paths that are just leading to nothing because there's nothing been rebuilt, except for as we continue to move here, you can see this just lone church by itself. It has been rebuilt since the storms, and you have to remember that a lot of area churches were deeply impacted during April 27th, where a lot of people wanted to run for help. They were trying to help themselves. You know, and looking at that and all the area churches, and they all had things they needed to do to clean up themselves, but they were always there helping everyone else, just like this community where you get stories, people's homes were destroyed, but they were next door helping somebody else. And those stories are just uplifting and amazing.
Yeah, and looking at that video, those aerials, we've seen them dozens of times by now, but every time it is just shocking to see that much devastation, just the paths carved by that system.
It's still there.
Yeah.
You know, and right now, the weather is completely different than 1 year ago today. Talk about what we were experiencing this time last year.
Well, last year at this time, we were actually having our first round of 2 rounds that pushed through with the squall line, and that did have embedded tornadoes in that squall line that did a lot of damage and injured people throughout the area. Now, what was about last year at this time was trying to make people understand that the second round, the afternoon round, was going to be the worst, and that was trying to convey that message when people were dealing with what was going on in the morning. But the good news is, what is great is that we are not anywhere close to a forecast like that. And you're watching Wake Up Alabama here this morning. This is our look back at April 27th. 1 year later, you're looking live at our set at this very special edition of Wake Up Alabama. We have a lot coming up. You're not going to want to miss it. Don't turn the channel. You're watching Wake Up Alabama on CBS 42.
This is a CBS 42 special report.
April 27th, 2011, a date branded into the hearts and minds of all who call Alabama home.
Ran inside, and I still didn't really take it as serious as I should have.
We're like so scared. Everybody's heart's just beating.
This historic act of Mother Nature carved a path still visible 1 year later.
The only way I knew I survived is God was standing there.
This is as violent as it gets.
It forever changed lives, for the worst and for the better.
You know, having been through something like this and losing something so important to me, it helps you to help somebody else.
Through every stage of recovery comes unbelievable stories of survival.
He was as high as like the power lines over there. It was just like a rag doll. I mean, he was just in it, just being tossed and thrown.
The people of Alabama have shown their strength through attitude and action. Survivors believing in each other to get through one of the worst disasters in our nation's history.
When something like that happens, folks tend to forget all their petty differences. Things like politics, religion, race. When we're confronted with a tragedy of such magnitude, all that just fades away.
And welcome back into Wake Up Alabama. You're taking a live picture here of one of the many structures that were damaged 1 year ago today, April 27, 2011. We are in Pratt City, one of the devastated communities following that massive tornado outbreak. Many areas have seen progress. Others, unfortunately, are still dealing with the aftermath. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Howe.
And I'm Brooke Smith. As Stephen said, we are live in Pratt City this morning.
I'm Rick Jackson. It is hard to believe a year has passed since that tornado outbreak of 2011.
You're absolutely right, Rick. And I'm Kalee, Dionne. And it's a night and day difference between what we're dealing with weather-wise as we look forward at what is still a cleanup process around the entire central Alabama area. And the forecast for today for all the events and for the cleanup that is still going on is going to be gorgeous. I mean, we are going to have clouds around, but you're already seeing some of the clouds part and the sun begin to come out here this morning. So that is good news around the area. You're looking at Titan 3D radar right now where we are in the clear for the entire central Alabama area. There is a small chance for an isolated thunderstorm this afternoon. I will have more on that coming up, and it's in a very small area for focusing on that, mainly in the northeastern counties. Also, temperatures this afternoon, for those of you getting ready to dress for the rest of the day, in the mid to low 80s.
We've mentioned it many times this morning, the weather relative to 1 year ago this morning. So pleasant, so beautiful as we have, I believe, many more days ahead of it. But what a contrast when you look back a year ago.
Absolutely. A lot of folks going to be out going to those community programs today. A lot of folks out still doing cleanup. So Kalee, Dionne joins us now with a look at what we can expect for all of that today.
You guys said it perfectly, the night and day difference between last year and today, and I'm happy to say that the weather is just going to be gorgeous out there today for all of the events and for also the cleanup still going on and just regular activities, going to school and work out there. We do not have anything on radar right now, and that is great news. There is a small chance of an isolated thunderstorm later on in the day today, mainly in the northeastern portions, but then dry air is going to filter in and we are going to be beautiful for the weekend. Temperatures right now are in the mid 60s area wide, but as we go through the day today, they will warm up. Low 80s to mid 80s throughout central Alabama, so be aware of that. If you're going to be out, drink plenty of water. But I'm here again with National Weather Service, Jim Stupkovich. Thank you again for joining me today. And you and I were speaking about, the night and day difference today, but also the entire month of April.
We have not had one tornado in the month of April, which is fantastic because April and May are our peak tornado months. So we've all had a chance now to catch our wind. I think we all need to recover, even us as meteorologists. Had a great conversation with Josh, psychologist with UAB on the side. And I think we're all kind of getting through this together.
And it's nice. It's nice to take a breath. All of us to be given a year to be able to clean up. Now we do have, we need that rainfall though. And me and you were talking that now drought is a concern.
Well, actually, April and May are also one of our peak months getting rainfall with these storms. Unfortunately, they're typically severe. So what that means is we're now actually starting to go into drought conditions over much of the state, especially the southern half. So we do need the rain. We just don't need this severe weather.
And we're looking at the next 7 days of basically dry weather, temperatures in the 80s. So, we don't need the severe weather aspect, as you said, but we do need to look for just a little bit of that rainfall. And hopefully we can get some of that. But for the events, I know you're busy today. Right. Just tell me how it feels to have such a great forecast for today.
Well, it's wonderful. Again, this is such a big day for everyone, and we just want to be a part of it. We want to help people and be there to talk with folks and just let them know what's coming and continue to educate them together.
Thank you so much again, Jim Stupkovich with the National Weather Service. And we're going to continue to be giving you weather updates throughout the morning. But as a meteorologist, you consider yourself that protector, that person who's responsible for the reason we spend the countless hours, the reason that I was up, working as long the hours as I was, is to prevent people losing their lives. This is right along I-20 where we're seeing several supercells that are tornadic right now. I think that each time that I deal with, a tornado where I know that that tornado's on the ground, it's going to affect me much more dramatically for a while in regards to what it's going to do, because I'm going to go to the worst case scenario, which was April 27th. Meteorologist that day, and we have with me Dr. Josh Claypo from UAB, he's a psychologist, and thank you for joining us today on this, looking back on April 27th, 1 year later.
It was a really rough day.
Yeah.
And I bet you're surprised, I think as a lot of us are, that 1 year out, those emotions are still there. And for people like you, who your house wasn't destroyed, you're physically fine, I know we've talked, it's still really rough.
You know, it is. It's really rough, and a lot more than I thought it was going to be this morning in regards to the fact that you give the information and you know what the storms are capable of, and you can only do so much, and then you have to leave it up to them to get to their safe spot and to listen and make sure that they are taking heed of the warnings. And that's the part that's so frustrating and emotional at the same time, is knowing that we lost so many lives when, you know, we did absolutely as much as we possibly could to get that out there. And I know we're learning so much to do better next time.
Well, I think we tend to forget about our weather service and our meteorologists as first responders, right? You know, we think about the firefighters and the police who are going out there, but for a lot of you, you're standing there watching, doing what you can, completely helpless. And I think for people, when they can't fix the outcome, that's what leaves those lasting scars, that frustration.
Yeah, I actually still don't really sleep as well as I did before because of the fact that it runs through my head, what could I have done differently? And, you know, I'm standing there and we had 29 tornadoes in the state of Alabama. 18 were violent, EF4, EF3, EF4, EF5. And you're looking at that and I just think to myself, I want to do more. Like, I want to be able to help because, you know, these people, even if I've never met you, they're my family.
Right.
And to know that a lot of them lost their lives or homes were destroyed, that affects me. And I lay in bed at night thinking, what could I have done to prevent that?
One of the hardest things for us as humans is when a story doesn't have an ending. It's hard for us to sort of just sit there and be with it. And part of that healing process is putting together the ending of the story. So for you, it's getting more involved and being more vigilant and doing more with preparedness. But for all of us, it's finding that closure. When we find it, we then know that we've healed. And it can take more than a year. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us forget, that it's more than a year to put that closure together.
Well, I mean, I think the emotion for me today is a lot more than I even expected it to be. Waking up today and knowing how many people still don't live in their homes and looking at all of this, you kind of remove yourself after a while because emotionally you have to. But being here today has been an eye-opener in the fact that there's still so much that needs to be done. There's no closure at this point.
And that's the anniversary date. And that's why folks need to feel that today is going to be a rough day, but moving forward, we're going to get better as a group. That's how we heal.
And thank you, Dr. Josh Claypool from UAB, a psychologist here. And we're going to talk much more about what's coming up with April 27th, 1 year later. Back to you guys.
Yeah. And Kalee is right. Just looking around here, being out here live in Pratt City this morning, she's absolutely right. There is so much that still needs to be done. Now, just another amazing story of survival.
Yeah, and it's so great that we can report those and air those after, unfortunately, knowing that so many people lost their lives 1 year ago today. Kalee joins us now with a look at the weather, and we continue to remind people what a great contrast it is from 1 year ago when at this time of the morning we had that first squall line come through, when there was a tornado or two that tore off that one as well.
I think it just shines a light on the strength of our state. I think the sun shines out today to prove we can get through this.
Yes.
And we can get through anything. And I love that we have such great weather, to be able to look back and think about what happened last year and find the positive out of it. And the positive being quiet and blue, beautiful weather as well. Temperatures today going to be in the mid 80s. So that's going to be
wonderful, beautiful.
Just make sure if you are out at events that you do drink plenty of fluids.
Thank you, Ray.
The weather a year ago today, just dramatically different.
Yeah, right now this area of Pratt City 1 year ago this moment was still intact, but many other areas had already been hit by a first system that moved through, right?
Yeah, the squall line had moved through, Cahaba Heights being one of the areas that was affected. And the thing was, it was just the first wave, and then we had the wave that ended up impacting here in Pratt City in the afternoon, but there was a lot of traffic problems. I know Highway 280 after the morning storms was a mess, but it's just nice to have an ability to sit back and take a deep breath today. There's a lot of emotions, even with just looking back on everything, and not to have to worry about another round of severe weather or even storms even. We're going to be seeing the sunshine, a mix of sun and clouds today. The forecast The temperatures are going to be in the mid-80s, and that's going to be beautiful later on today. Here's a look at Titan 3D radar. Where's the rain at? Well, it's well to our north and west, and it's very spotty. The entire southeast is in the clear. Temperatures this morning staying in the mid to upper 60s here throughout central Alabama. Good morning and welcome back to Wake Up Alabama. We are looking back at a very special Wake Up Alabama. April 27th, 1 year later. You're looking at, we have beautiful flowers regrowing, but then we also have so much that needs to be done out here. And there's that house behind those flowers that just still has a lot of work to be done. And it's one of many, many homes. A lot of cleanup going on today, a lot of events going on today, and the weather is going to be beautiful today. We will have the sun trying to peek through the clouds here.
Yep.
Temperatures will be in the mid 80s. Gorgeous, a way different story than last year, and we welcome that.
Yes, we
Absolutely.
do. Absolutely.
Right. And be sure to join us tonight for CBS 42 News at 5, 6, and 10. Our team will be live from Pratt City, Pleasant Grove, and Tuscaloosa.
Coming up tonight at 5, one of the many stories we'll be having is discussing the Tuscaloosa Memorial and the remembrance there, as again, so many locations, definitely including Tuscaloosa, look back to the terrible tragedy that happened 1 year ago.
Then imagine your child.
On CBS 42 News at 6, a couple feels blessed to be alive to see this day after making it through the storm. We'll have their story of survival.
Yeah, Brooke, I have to say this. Imagine your child, everyone, just being ripped from your arms during this devastation. That story is going to be coming up tonight as well with our very own Mark Prater, so stay tuned for that.
Again, so many stories. We're very thankful to be here today. Looking back, we've had so much reflection, but as Kalee's mentioned, as we've all mentioned, there's so much to look forward to in Alabama as we can move forward, because there's a lot of positives still after such devastation 1 year ago.
I know I speak for all of us as we're proud to be from the state and everyone who's come together in this last year and as we move forward.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of Wake Up Alabama.
Yeah. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Bye.